How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the Timeless Movie Podcast, episode number 64. My name is Victor Vasquez. Thanks so much for coming back and listening. On this podcast, we're going to be discussing a new movie. Funny enough, it's actually not a movie that came out and was released in theaters. It was actually released and premiered on Amazon Prime. That is right, we are going to be covering Roadhouse. This is actually a remake of the original Roadhouse that came out in the 80s, and we're just going to be covering this film, giving my thoughts, my opinions, discussing what I really liked about it, what I didn't like about it. And guys, at any time, feel free, down below in the comments, let me know what your thoughts are of this movie. Would definitely want to interact with you guys and get your thoughts on Roadhouse and if you've had a chance to check it out. Little background on this specific film in regards to at least my history with it. I have actually never seen the original Roadhouse. Again, I know that it's a remake. I knew that it existed. I saw it referenced, I guess, in a couple times in Family Guy as well. But other than that, I have not seen it. I just know a specific scene that happens at the end. I know that Patrick Swayze came out in the original film. So when I heard that this film was actually going to get made, I just didn't know if it was going to be some type of a sequel to it or if it was going to be a reboot. But it was announced that it was going to be directed by Doug Liman and it was going to be a complete remake, a completely new story as well, starring Jake Gyllenhaal. So that kind of got my interest. I was like, all right, let's give it a shot. I was really hoping that it would come out in theaters, but I ended up finding out that it was just straight to Amazon Prime. So I ended up giving it a look and wanted to kind of just explain my thoughts and see what I really thought about this movie. So let's go ahead and dive in. Overall, I really like the movie. It's okay to a good movie. I'm not going to say it's the greatest action movie of all time. That is not what this was able to achieve, but it had some cool moments. It had some things sprinkled in that were pretty interesting. The story revolves around this character named Dalton, who is played by Jake Gyllenhaal. He basically is an ex-UFC fighter. He has to kind of go through the motions of basically being homeless. It's not explained at the beginning why he's homeless, but it eventually kind of leads you to the reasoning as to why he is in the predicament that he is in his life. But basically, he is trying to kind of gain money by participating in these different types of underground fights that are illegal and just trying to make money out of that. And then he's given an opportunity by a character named Frankie. Frankie actually owns a specific roadhouse in Florida. I think the city is called the Glass Keys. But Frankie, who is played by Jessica Williams, she offers Dalton a job to basically be a bouncer for the roadhouse. And then that's kind of where the journey begins. He's able to kind of help out, almost become a member of the Glass Key community. Everybody knows him. He protects the roadhouse. And then he eventually ends up facing off against the antagonist of the movie, which is Ben Brandt, played by Billy Magnuson. And what he basically wants is to build a resort. He's trying to buy out Jessica Williams' character of Frankie and buy out the roadhouse. And obviously, he doesn't get his way. So he ends up getting the help of none other than Conor McGregor, making his acting debut. His character is named Knox. And it's basically a showdown between Dalton and Knox. And they basically have to fight to see who's going to come out on top. Will the roadhouse survive? And that's kind of how the, very quick synopsis of the movie, obviously missing a lot of details. But that's really what the story revolves around. Now, again, for me, I really, the first half of the movie was okay for me. I didn't really see anything that was kind of interesting. It wasn't actually until Dalton started going through his past and started showing like those flashbacks as to what got him to the point of being homeless and then becoming a bouncer. What was the reasoning or what were his actions that ended up leading to that? That's where I really started to care for what was going on and the conflict that was within him as well. So that was kind of the interesting part and what kind of kept me going through the movie. Besides Dalton, though, there weren't too many characters that I could attach myself to. There was, again, these different characters like Frankie, who was the owner of the roadhouse. You had a love interest in Ellie, played by Daniela Melchior. And you had these different characters. You try to have these connections with different members of the community of Glass Key, but nothing just clicked. Nothing was able to kind of get me to really care about, oh, okay, well, like this person is going through something tough or this person is going through something hard in Glass Key. That it just never felt like that for me. And so, again, that's kind of where it was a little bit tough. Overall, again, an okay to good movie. It has some really cool fight scenes and a few, just very few funny moments that ended up making me kind of laugh and chuckle as well. But again, okay to good movie. I liked it. Let's go ahead and dive into a little bit more specifics. So a little bit of a spoiler warning for anybody that has not seen Roadhouse. Just going to be diving into some things in regards to scenes that I liked or scenes that I didn't like. So again, if you don't want to be spoiled, feel free to jump out now. That way you can kind of come back and listen to my thoughts in detail. First pro for me of Roadhouse was Dalton's inner conflict. It reminded me of, and it's going to sound weird, but it's going to remind me of like the Hulk in Marvel. Now, what I mean by that, and stick with me, is the character of the Hulk in Marvel is, you see, Bruce Banner, and you look at him, you're like, well, this guy seems harmless. This guy seems like a guy that wouldn't try to hurt anybody, or why would he become the Hulk, right? He seems like he wants to live a simple life, he wants to be a nice guy, and he wants to live a stress-free life. And that's kind of what Dalton was trying to do after he was kind of homeless and he became a bouncer and he started getting familiar with the community of Glass Key. He just wanted to live a simple life. He didn't want anything stressing him out. He didn't want to do anything that kind of made him get a little bit more riled up. And when he did get riled up is when he actually showed his true side, his dark side. And he shows how he gets unhinged and how he's able to basically do things with, without even thinking about the consequences. And so that's what actually really intrigued me is again, that conflict of him trying to keep things cool, but the environment around him not allowing him to. And again, that's why I kind of feel like there's a resemblance to the Hulk, because again, Bruce Banner's trying to keep everything together, but then eventually the world around him makes him explode and he becomes the Hulk. And again, in the film, in Roadhouse, Dalton again has these little flashbacks that kind of show his time when he was a UFC fighter, and it explains what he did to basically get kicked out and then eventually become homeless. And then it just basically sets him off. And then it just goes through and it shows the crazy side. And almost like at the end of the second act, towards the third act, you start seeing again the true side of Dalton. You see him start killing guys. You start seeing him just go past a point of almost like no return, just because of how much rage he has built in. Again, that was just something that I really enjoyed. It just really started showing again more of that emotional piece of like what Dalton is facing inside his head. And again, I really, really wanted to see that. And that was again, a really cool way that they did it. It took maybe a little bit too long. It maybe started kicking in until almost like I mentioned, the second act. But again, once it got there, that third act was just really, really kind of like anxious and a lot of tension, just because you didn't know what the heck he was going to do as well. Second pro that I really liked was the use of MMA in the film. I'm a big MMA fan. Again, I wouldn't say I'm a huge expert, but I do follow the sport of MMA. And it was really cool to see Conor McGregor be a part of this film, not only as an actor, but I'm assuming that he also helped out in a lot of the choreography and the fight scenes, because you see a lot of combination of different principles. You see a lot of like judo, you see jujitsu, you see boxing, you see a couple of kicks almost like in Muay Thai style, but it was really well done in some of those scenes where again, and I'm assuming that it definitely was heavy on the choreography with Conor McGregor, just again, his vast knowledge of the sport. So it was really well done. Whenever it would be Dalton versus Knox, you would see, again, these different chokeholds. You'd see different kicks being thrown. You'd see a lot of takedowns. And then obviously you see the different types of punches that were trying to be landed as well. So again, that to me, that really piqued my interest. And that was one of my favorite aspects, again, is how much they included the use of the different principles of MMA to try to show off like, hey, it's not just a fist to fist fight, right? It can be a lot more than that. And my last pro for Roadhouse is actually going to be the music. There's a lot of different music that was included in the fight scenes. And what I liked about it is that the music was actually music that everybody could hear, because the music was being played by a band in the Roadhouse. And so you would see whenever there'd be kind of like a bar fight, you'd have the music be playing. Sometimes it would be like very fast, quick music. Sometimes it would be slower music. My favorite part was actually when Knox first arrived at the Roadhouse. And, there was a band playing, and it was just like this very upbeat music. And it just kind of showed the chaotic nature of Knox. And he just came in with a golf club, started knocking things around. And again, the music was just in rhythm, on beat. At least for me, it added so much to that scene. So I really enjoyed that piece of it. Again, music was done really well. I think even at the beginning, Post Malone was a part of this movie. He was like one of those underground fighters, and one of his songs was playing as he was fighting as well. So really good stuff. Again, I think the director and the team was able to kind of curate a nice little list of music and moments of when to add those, and it just elevated those scenes whenever there was action going on. All right, now I think it's a good opportunity to move into the cons that I had about Roadhouse. Again, I have a few that I kind of want to just cover. For me, although this is a lot of action that was included, and it's had some nice choreography. I do have to actually say that one of my cons is the way they shot and filmed the action and fight scenes. It almost looked like there was some kind of CGI element involved when they were fighting, because there's times where people would throw punches, and then at the end of the punch, when it would land, it would seem like the camera would kind of shift and their bodies would shift in a weird way. It just didn't look real or natural. It almost looked like it was sped up to kind of make it look like it was more real. But to me, it actually made it look less of that. Almost made it look like this is totally fake, right? I can tell that they're not punching each other, or it just looks way too fast for a normal human to throw a punch. Again, that's just me. That's a personal nitpick on my side. But a lot of the fight scenes included this kind of effect where, again, it just looked like characters were at the end of a punch, when something is landed, it kind of just moves and alters, and it looks like, again, it just looks like it's altered in some type of a way. Didn't really like how that was kind of portrayed, unfortunately. And it really took me away out of some scenes of action that were choreographed really well. But because of that little camera or kind of effect that they were adding to the fights, it just looked very awkward. And so it kind of took me out a couple of times. Second con for me, and this was a big one, was the dialogue. It was pretty bland. It was pretty kind of okay. Every kind of line that was delivered by other characters was very monotone. Nothing was was said with like real energy and intent. And again, this is nothing against the actors. Again, I'm not an actor. I'm pretty sure I would be terrible at saying these lines as well. But other than Jake Gyllenhaal, everybody else in this movie, they just had some lines that just sounded very boring. There was like no point in this person saying it, or even times where the lines just, human being would say that kind of a line. Now, again, I'm exaggerating. I'm using kind of hyperbole. Obviously, there are people that might talk that way. I'm pretty sure I'm one of those, as you can probably listen to all the episodes previous to this one. My vocabulary is very simple, but it's just the way that they would say the lines. It just didn't sound good. Again, that's kind of what hurt the film for me, is I wasn't able to connect with these other characters besides Dalton, because their delivery of the lines, what they were saying, nothing had any kind of soul to it in a way. So it's unfortunate, because again, I thought the movie had a lot of good things to it, but that was just one of the big ones. Last but not least, the third con that I have is I wish they had shown more consequence for what Dalton did. So again, the biggest thing that they showed was that basically he ended up killing a UFC fighter in the ring because he kept punching them after the ref told him to stop. And they show that, and they kind of hint at what happened, and then they start showing the actions of what Dalton does in real life. But I wish they could have shown a little bit more of those flashbacks of like, well, what happened? Show somebody kicking him out of the UFC. Show him trying to get another job at another promotion. Show more of that detail. They just showed flashbacks of him kind of fighting and going into that rage mode. But that was about it. And so I feel like it would have added so much more to Dalton's character if they would have showed his struggle of how he became homeless. Because they didn't really explain that. They just start him with being homeless and then just say that, hey, he used to be a fighter. Now he's not anymore. But I wanted to see more, show more of that background and context so that we feel more for Dalton throughout the movie. Just, again, I didn't feel that deeper of a connection, which I think would have helped the film a lot as well. Talking about the performances, though, of the movie, I do want to call out that my favorite performance was either going to be Jake Gyllenhaal as Dalton or Conor McGregor as Knox. Now, I'm going to choose Jake Gyllenhaal. Again, I think he had much more to do and to work with. He had to, again, be that nice guy, be the guy that was like, hey, is this guy even a fighter? And then you see him turn at the end of showing his rage and showing that like true primal nature that he has. And it's just really well done. And he was really the one actor that was able to kind of, at least what he was saying, it would kind of connect with me. So I got to go with Dalton. Again, his performance at the beginning was okay. Again, just showing and going very slow and leading us into what was then eventually the end, which showed his dark side, let's say, and showing how, again, he's crazy. He's got something wrong in his head, because as soon as he goes in that rage mode, you don't know what can happen. He can take your life. He can do a lot of things without consequence as well. So really good stuff, again, by Jake Gyllenhaal. I do want to give an honorable mention to Conor McGregor. He was funny. He was hilarious in this movie. I think for me, why I don't give it to him is because he actually just kind of acted like how he is in real life. I mean, I followed him since he started getting big in the UFC, and he's just like, again, hilarious. And he says a bunch of random things, and that's how he was in the movie. He was just kind of walking around. He would say these ridiculous, over-the-top things. Again, I think it was it wasn't really that much of a performance for him. He was just honestly acting as himself, maybe just elevated to another level. But really good stuff again for his debut. He still did a lot of good stuff. His action scenes were awesome. I'm pretty sure he didn't need a stunt double because of his vast experience. But really good stuff for Conor McGregor. Wonder if we'll ever see him in another film as well. All right, also want to cover my favorite moment of the movie. For me, it's got to be the first fight between Knox and Dalton. There's again that chaotic energy that Conor McGregor brought as the character of Knox, where again he comes into the Roadhouse, he has a golf club, he starts smashing things up, he has a full out brawl pop out of that specific Roadhouse, and then that's where Dalton just has to intervene, and that's where they start kind of again fist fighting. They start kind of showing off the MMA skills that they both have, and it's just really cool stuff. Again, there's still some scenes that kind of take me out of it just because of how they were shot and like the little effects that they would do when they would throw punches. But again, it was just a lot of fun. The music that was playing as they fought was really awesome. Different types of angles that they would show. The highlight for me again was just being able to see that they would bust out these different types of moves, like putting each other in sleeper holds, throwing each other over the bar or through things as well. And then there's even a line where Conor McGregor's Knox says, "Man, you're crazy," and he says that to Dalton. He states to him, "I think I'm crazy too." And then it just, they just keep fighting. It's just ridiculous over the top things, but I really enjoyed that piece of it as well. Awesome. All right, guys. Well, that's really my overall thoughts about Roadhouse. If I had to decide whether it is a timeless movie, for me, I would say that it is not timeless at this moment. Again, it's not one of the best action movies I've seen over the last couple of years. Again, it has its moments. It has some cool aspects of Dalton and the character and what he faces. But to me, again, what brings this movie down is just the dialogue, not being able to connect with the other side characters that Dalton is really kind of living around in Glass Key. I feel like those two aspects really kind of hurt the movie. It's just, I wish if there was more connection, more to care about like these other characters that Dalton is interacting with. I feel like it would have made the movie more exciting if the dialogue was just just a little bit more on point. Again, I feel like it would have just kind of kept me engaged throughout the movie. Again, I still went through it all the way. I didn't stop the movie. I didn't, jump out and then jump back in. I watched it all the way through, but once again, those are the small little details that I feel like would have added so much more to this film. So at this moment, Roadhouse is not a timeless movie for me, but I want to hear from you guys. What did you think about Roadhouse? Did you get a chance to check it out on Amazon Prime? Let me know. I really want to hear your thoughts. Maybe you enjoyed it more than the original. I haven't seen the original, so let me know if if it's not as good as the original or if I should check it out. Let me know down below in the comments. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to another episode. My name is Victor Vasquez. This has been episode number 64 of the Timeless Movie Podcast. I'll check you guys out next week on another episode where we watch a new movie and discuss and decide whether it is timeless. All right, guys. Thanks so much. Have a good week.